Hey, welcome to Soul Hub. So, in this episode, we're going to be talking about how you can experience a deep sense of peace in the midst of inner turmoil. And I know that sounds paradoxical or completely contradictory. Like most people think, well, either you're feeling turmoil or you're feeling peace. Either you're feeling anger or frustration or stress, or you're feeling peace, right? But that's actually not true. And I'm actually going to discuss a technique with you that can help you experience this very thing. And this week, we're not going to be talking about a question from the community. I'm actually going to be sharing my own personal experience, like I promised I'd do in this podcast from time to time. And so this is something I kind of it arose spontaneously many months ago, maybe almost a year ago. I'm not sure exactly how long it was, but it was at a time when I was going through one of those downward cycles that I talked about in the awakening journey, where sometimes we're feeling peaceful and joyful and loving and it feels effortless, and other times we're feeling, like we just completely fell off the path and we've regressed and just nothing feels good. And so I was going through one of those periods, and it was a very strong one. There was a lot of anger, there was some apathy, and it was just it wasn't feeling good. And I was laying there on my bed, and I was just sucked into that whole thing. And then suddenly this question arose. And this is what I want to teach you here, is this question, all right? That can make it possible to experience peace in the midst of turmoil. And the question arose, where is peace now? Now, I think I had heard it from a great spiritual teacher. I think it was Adyashanti, who had one time I had heard it from a while back, but for some reason it just arose in that moment. I hadn't thought about it in a long time, and it just arose. And the question I asked myself is, where is peace now? And so in the midst of all this stuff that was coming up, all this anger and whatever that was just bubbling up, and felt like crap inside, this question kind of made me, somehow my consciousness just expanded around it, and it was searching for that peace. It's like, where is it now? Like, did it disappear? Where did it go? And suddenly, I felt myself feeling into that peace. But here's the crazy thing. The anger and the frustration, all that was still there. It's not like suddenly, now I feel peaceful. No. I was feeling the peace, and yet that dark emotion, those negative emotions were still there. And that was such a baffling experience. It was like, wait, how am I experiencing this deep sense of peace, this spaciousness, this okayness, while at the same time, all this stuff is still arising strongly? Now, I had heard of that, conceptually. I'd had little glimpses of it, but this was the first time where I was really experiencing it, very palpably, was very, strong. And it was like, wow, there I am being this spacious peace, and there's all this stuff still arising, and it's okay. And it was like, it made me really stop, and it was kind of a demarcation point. Now, after that, I went through the forgetting it part and all that, but recently, it's really stayed with me. And now I find myself, I'm actually right now going through this down cycle in the spiritual journey, where what's happening currently, maybe for the last week or so, is for whatever reason, a lot of stuff is coming up, and it's being harder to tap into the sense of connectedness or peace more effortlessly. And it's been, it's been just kind of a lot more unconscious reactions taking place. I'm less kind than I would like to be, let's say with my family. I'm less present than I would like to be. And it just feels more difficult to be present or to be conscious. And yet, what's been happening, which has been fascinating, is that anytime I recollect myself, I sit down and meditate, or just have a little moment, not even a formal meditation, I find that even if this stuff is coming up, and I can feel it even right now within, I can also simultaneously be feeling that energy field of peace, that spacious awareness, and feel that that is the true me, that that is actually me, and it is just being here with those emotions. Now, I know I've talked about in the past this type of thing, but there's a trap or that's very easy to fall into. It's this thing, the idea that we're on a subtle level, and this is really the ego doing this. As you guys know, I love to point out all the ego traps of what the mind does. But the idea is that when we're meditating or when we're trying to get recentered, often there's this subtle underlying motivation to feel better, which is completely natural. Obviously, we all want to feel better, right? But what tends to happen from that is that in our want or in our desire to feel better, we are essentially trying to run away from whatever emotions we're currently experiencing. Like, we just want to feel at peace. But then when you realize that you can be feeling the peace while those emotions are there, all of a sudden there is much less need to run away from those emotions just so you can feel good again. You can feel good in a way even while you feel bad, if that makes any sense. So there's an aspect of you that's feeling bad, but you're no longer exclusively identified with that. And instead, you're more and more identified with the aspect of you that feels spacious and good and at peace and free. And so what this does, this question of asking yourself, where is the peace now? It brings the mind into this curiosity. And it gets the mind to really wonder, is it actually gone? Have I actually lost it? Or is it always right there? Literally always, all the time, but I am shutting myself off from it. And that's the key. It's a really different shift in perspective, right? Is it still here? Has it always been here? Am I just shutting myself off from it? And so when you ask, where's the peace now? It quiets the mind, and the mind starts kind of searching in curiosity. Can I feel it? And then once you start quieting down like that, and that awareness starts expanding to see, where is this mysterious peace? All of a sudden, you start feeling it. You start experiencing it, because by default, as the mind quiets down, you're already feeling more peace. And so now you start feeling it, and all this turmoil might still be going on, and yet it's okay. It's like, yeah, I'm this spacious awareness that can be there with the turmoil and allow it to go on. And that's all right. And then, of course, what tends to happen is that as that occurs, all of a sudden this turmoil that kept going on and going on suddenly starts releasing in like spontaneous ways. And suddenly you start feeling it just kind of either dissolving or transmuting or whatever. And why? Because that awareness that you are starts healing it in a way. But strangely enough, even as it's still there, you're still feeling okay, which is very liberating. And so this is a simple technique I want to talk to you about. It's not really a technique, it's just a simple question, and those can usually be the most powerful thing. It's just to ask, where is the peace now when you are going through some kind of inner turmoil? To realize that it's actually never gone, but then to investigate it yourself, not conceptually, but literally feel into where that peace is now. And inevitably, if you do it with curiosity, with innocence, with fascination, you'll start to feel that peace, and you'll realize it's still right there. And then if you deepen into it, you'll realize it's actually you. And you are that piece that is actually watching the turmoil versus you being the one in turmoil that's tapping into a bit of peace. It switches it completely. And you're like, oh yeah, okay. And then that's where you become that spaciousness that is able to be with the turmoil. And so this is very helpful. At least I've found it very helpful recently in my current downturn. It's a much, I guess, easier downturn to go through, because it feels like, I mean, I'm still calling it a downturn and upturn. It's not truly that. It just feels like that. It's like a cycle. But it feels more like there's a lot more centeredness and balance despite all the inner turmoil that's occurring. And there's a lot more natural self-forgiveness when I'm not present, when I'm less kind than I want to be, and so forth and so forth. And then that quickly gets me back centered. That's why I'm sitting here today. I'm feeling it. In the morning, there was a bunch of that stuff that came up, and here I am still being able to be inspired enough to do this podcast episode because, just an hour ago, I was suddenly the piece that was being with this turmoil, and all of a sudden it started releasing. And so just from this simple question, so try that, see how that works for you. It's very simple, but sometimes the most simple things are the most powerful. And let me know how you find it. All right. But I obviously do want to continue answering your questions. So if you do have any questions, please send them in to support@soulhub.com. Thank you so much.